Okay, welcome everybody to Hong Kong Biennale of Urbanism and Architecture's online session. First of all, thank you very much to the organizer, Hong Kong Institute of Architects Biennale Foundation, and co-organizer, Hong Kong Institute of Planners and Hong Kong Designer Association for organizing the Biennale. And the title of this year's Biennale is 2x2, Imagine to Innovate. So, and our title sponsor is DBS Bank. And for this particular event, we have two co-organizers. The first of all, the venue sponsor, Haw Par Music in this magnificent building. And also our speaker, Marco, who we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And what's also important is that the sub-theme for the Biennale is identity, livability, and sustainability. And in a way, this session probably covers more to do with sort of identity, sort of a livability side of that spectrum. And it's called Imaginicity session number 2, music and architecture. Now, our main target of the Biennale is what we call future city builders. By that, we don't just mean architects or planners or designers, but everybody. For example, we believe in the future cities are built by or people like lawyers, designers, accountants. They all have a say. Medical professionals, professionals. They all have a say about our city, how we what the image of the city is going to be like. And planners and architects have a role to play because we know how to build the software, but the software needs to respond to the software. We know how to build hardware, which needs to respond to the software. So, for example, in one of our earlier sessions, we have speakers from what they call themselves digital urbanists, coupled together with technologists and a psychologist. So you can see where we're coming from in the sense that I think at the end of it, people say, well, why wasn't this kind of crossover happen earlier? You know, a lot of things, there were so many things that we can learn from each other. So the idea of sort of software in the city, and the software and the hardware, architecture and the environment, we want to explore that. And I can't think of a better way to explore that in Haw Par Music. I mean, the software being music and the cultural kind of platform for crossovers, and the hardware being a piece of heritage building, which is very significant in Hong Kong. So at this point, I think I'd like to say that this is a session which is we will have some audience, live audience as well as online audience. So you catch us looking at two different directions, but that would be if anybody has some questions, please feel free to put your hand up or just send us the information. I'll pick it up from my cell phone and then we can answer those later. So Marco, we met, actually the reason why we met was that there were a couple of times we want to do something here together. You are a musicologist. You want to do range from opera to lectures to whatever, So, but unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 situation, it never really happened. Or not yet. Yeah, absolutely. And but at some point along the line, I asked you, well, what's the connection between music and architecture? And actually, we started talking. We all got very excited with our ideas. And we said, why not? Well, why don't we have a session together? And then we also invite one of our faculty, Haw Par Music faculty, Jessica, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. Maybe we'll catch up with her another time. So today is just Marco and myself. And I don't want to steal your thunder. It's your show. So why don't I hand the mic to you, and then you take it on from here, and then I will ask you some questions later.
Yeah, please. Thank you so much. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Haw Par. I think it's one of the most beautiful places here in Hong Kong. It's 10 years that I'm here in Hong Kong, and I think that I've seen it a lot of magic, a lot of incredible things. But I have to say, every time I feel that there is much more to discover, because it's a city that every day changes, literally every day. In 10 years that I'm here, I can see that today is a completely different city. And so when you ask me about music and architecture, I say, I think that there are really so many, not similarities, let's say point in common, something that triggered a lot of triggers for people, for different kind of audience. And so I accepted it, and actually I can just happy to start. So music and architecture. There is this quote that personally I like a lot. Music is a liquid architecture. Architecture is frozen music. It's from the German writer Goethe. Why? Because architecture is something that has to build, and then has to build a building. This building has a life because people is living in any way, is living in that building, inside and outside. So there is a concept of space that there is an empty space. There was an empty space before, and then this empty space became something. And music actually do something similar, because when we compose a music, when we create something, we ask, and then after we will talk a little bit more about this concept, we ask two things to the audience: their time and their space. Because without the audience, without the time that they give to us to listen to our music, and their presence, there is no music, right? There will be just dust, there is silence. So, I find a lot of, how to say, both, let's say, start from this. Both we can decide that we can say that it is a kind of art, right? Art is an expression of humans. I think it's the only real thing that make us a little bit different from just animals or aliens or whatever. So there is this connection between the creativity. There is something that is coming from almost nothing, right? A blank page that is starting to assume like a form, like a shape, and a representation, or at the Greek they say the mimesis, try to reproduce in some way the nature or the space that is around us. So I just took this picture of a church inside, and actually those columns, they like remind me like a street going somewhere, and then exactly like a church. I'm just aiming versus, like in the direction of the altar. And like a street, I'm going to somewhere that maybe I don't see the end yet, but it's my target, my goal. This kind of representation, even in music, since long time ago. Mm-hmm. All the artists, all the composer, when they realize that sounds can be bended or can be reproduced in some way, they realized that there was this kind of incredible power to take something from the nature, something from that is around us, and make it elevate in some way, because it's detached from the nature and even from the composer. It becomes something that has its own life. So this music, it's very famous, and it's that? What is this? Vivaldi for Caesar, right? And Vivaldi started to understand the power of representation music. So in this moment, we have the feeling of the spring. So the happiness, something yes. that it's coming back from born again from the winter. And these are birds. This was one of the first time that the audience that we are talking about 5 centuries ago, yeah. They are listening something that is not from nature. These are strings that they try to imitate nature. So this is already a kind of, not similarities, a common point. Can I say in English? Yes. Okay, let's go ahead. So I identified a kind of intersection of music and architecture through history, and become like one become the representation of the other one. For example, sound and nature theater in the ancient times, architecture, geometry, and resonance. They wanted to capture the sound from one point so everybody can hear it, right? Same thing, today we think that the music was always an expression of the artist. This is a really, this kind of concept doesn't have more than 200 years. Before, music was more related to, first, like a kind of entertainment. So it was not so elevated. It was not something that people can think like a painting or, no. At the time, the painter was the real star. The musician was just a joker, just a clown. So when they started to understand that the music with a certain kind of relation, harmonies, they can really twist and make you feeling something. And this ability, this way how to think needed a very long time. They started to understand, okay, not only we need a space, we need the time, where, but in the how, right? How we can play. So if you go ahead, the church, I say church, but just because, okay, I'm Catholic. But if we think the religious spaces, space where the human being, they are trying to connect with something that is very high. It's high. High means far. Mm-hmm. I cannot touch it. It's also one more moment where the music was realizing that the power of music was helping to pray, helping to bring the soul of human being to another level. So it's not related to what which kind of God I believe. Is how I can reach the kind of level. And all the churches usually, they have, especially in the Gothic time, they have this huge, very high, tall ceiling. Because technically at that time there was not a light. So when you enter the church, you didn't see the ceiling. So actually it's like you cannot see God, right? And the music the same. For the first time here, the singers, they were thinking, they understood the power of the reverb, of the ambience around them. So they were singing in a space that was made in order to amplify their voices. So they were using the space as an instrument, not just a tool. It was something that was enhancing their message. The Renaissance is when, to me, the musicians, and also maybe also the architecture, they're starting to understand, okay, now really we are mastering our art. So they just start to go crazy. Here still there is the concept of proportion. But I think in the Baroque time, they say, okay, forget it. Let's go wherever we want. There's a kind of feeling, especially in music, I want to...
Flamboyance.
Yes. I was saying I want to get high. But because it was a real... I want to have not just fun, I want to go deeper. And...
yes, get high through music.
Exactly, yeah, to me, yes. But even when you go inside a theater, of that time, of a church of that time, you come from the rigor,
you're completely overwhelmed by everything.
Exactly. So
the music, the atmosphere,
and then the angels everywhere,
right?
And then right. So it was kind of exaggeration, but that exaggeration was just discovered. Yeah. It's that feeling of discovering something that before was not even allowed. So it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then I just jumped to the modern time because today music is something that you cannot just write on a paper. You need to utilize whatever you have in order to go to the next level. And this next level is very hard to understand where, because there is a lot of, I just found these two buildings. One is kind of, I try to do something that has a proportion as a, this other is, I want to bend it. So of course it's. So new materials, computer simulation, electronic sound, something that didn't exist before. Again, I want to go ahead to the next level. Now, this is the feeling. But to me, the most important thing is the correlation between space and time. Because, as we said before, the space, a musician, a composer, will always think where the music will be played. And that means that the musician has to understand that someone else is living that music, will experience the music. It's not something that you cannot put on the wall and once in a while you're watching it like a painting or whatever. No, it's something that if you don't live it, because it takes your time, and then you have to create also your space to listen. You will miss it.
Yeah.
I think that architecture is something similar when the architecture is starting to don't just think about a shape outside, but how the people will live in the shape. So how the building will live in the space around the building, and how the people will leave the building inside. Another thing is that to me it's a really, you cannot get a glance of music in 1 second. You can have a painting, you can have a look of this painting, you can dedicate 1 second, 1 minute, and you get a bigger picture. Music, you don't have it, right? You cannot, because if I play you 2 seconds, I cannot condense in 2 seconds what I actually say in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You can have a feeling because there's a, but you cannot, that's it, right? In a building, I think it's the same. In this moment, we are in one room of a building, a house that actually is so different. So we are living just apart, just a little bit. When we are outside, we can see only the facade. If you want to see more, you have to take your time. And this time means a part, maybe small of your life, and dedicate it to that space.
Yes.
And you cannot just take it, I pass by. No, you can see just a little bit, right? So I think this is a very nice thing to think about, because it's a limitation in some way. At the same time, it's something that makes it even richer, because it's not just take time for me to compose a music, but then I will ask you the time to live. Some question? No?
I think carry on. I think
it's okay?
we are,
Everything is clear?
Yeah.
My Italian English?
Perfect.
Okay.
Very, very Italian English. Very excellent. It somehow makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm making sounds.
Yes.
Actually, these sounds that make some also sense. Anyway, so we said art, we said common grounds, but actually, arts, it's a kind of communication, right? So if you want to communicate, you need the tools, and you need to share a code to understand each other. Otherwise, if you speak Italian, you speak Cantonese, we will never get to understand. So Italians have the gesture to try to reach more people to make it you go. But again, if I say tavolo, you're lost. maybe, or maybe you know, maybe. So, the first part of the communication, I think it's the first thing is the perception. Maybe you don't understand the music. Maybe you don't understand a building, especially when the building is a little bit there too much, right? But for sure you will get perception of that, something that make that building or that music different from a sound, from I don't know, a rock or a bunch of bricks put on.
Yeah.
So maybe you can see the same materials that made a building or a music, but if you don't understand, maybe you don't understand, but for sure you're not cold about that. I mean, you give you something, so you will have this perception. Maybe you say, I don't like it. Forget it, go. Right? So, they need this is because it's important to share a code. Just go a little bit faster. To share a code or a tool. Let's start from the tool. Tool can be body, hand, mouth. Body for dance, for example. Mouth, voice, or hand for the theater. And music and architecture are not exceptional. Architecture, the first thing you have to see it, right? Music, the first thing you have to hear it. So, touch you something, I mean, stimulate something physically from you. And from that, you cannot just say, okay, nothing happened, right? So we started about tools and code. A code means something that helps you to decode what I'm trying to say, and vice versa. You're an architect, I'm a composer. If we need to share that, I don't know. What I'm doing is a sacred music for a church, and what you're doing, for example, is a church, or something that is for a religious purpose. Right? So, was that kind of purpose, the kind of aim, and the tools that you need to make it happen? I just want to show something. Try to read this. And you say, come on. You
It's easy for a musician.
For me, it's absolutely not. I mean, it's very easy, right?
Yeah.
And now, let's go deeper. Even if you go deeper, can you say, you know it?
I don't know it, but
No.
Yeah.
Makes sense to you?
I'm sure it does.
Did you see that actually? No, I mean, to you it makes sense. No, I mean, even if there is some word here. You see, right?
Yeah.
Because you go very closer.
Yeah.
Still, you miss the code. You don't have the tools to decode this code, right?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Let's go this one. Maybe it makes perfectly sense for you. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Right? So even if I try to find some common, I don't know, I can say that this one looks like similar to this one. And again, I can see something that comes back, but I have no clue. And then even if I stay 1,000 years to try to decode that, I cannot, right? So, what are we missing? A common shared code. Without that code that had put together me and you, we cannot communicate. Even if I can be the best composer ever, and I show you that paper, you are the highest poet in the Chinese poetry, and nothing, right? So, okay. So, I think that even art, an art proposition, it's all about understanding and perception. You can have a perception, but you don't understand, but at least you have something. Or you have a completely understanding, so your perception technically is, I mean, it would come together, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to show you this video. If I go here, it works, yes. There's no sound. So, it is scary. If you watch it, it's a lion coming. If you are on the street, not maybe in the street, not my anyway. If it's coming to you, is it scary?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, but it's a lion. Let's say it is a lion. Okay. If I play in this way, it is much scarier. Okay, so the music is adding something to your experience. Maybe your experience was, okay, you're not scared. Actually, see, if I say lion, even if it's the oldest lion in the world, I would be scared. But if I put this, if I play this, the scariest, the fear goes away. How can be dangerous something that walk on this? Okay, now just to say that music, I just go to the music side a little more, just to show you. Music is this. Play immediately, first of all, with your, again, feeling, perception. And as a composer, my goal is to move something. And so, how music works, and you will see why I'm talking about that, because I want to connect immediately with the architecture. Okay, in a very basic way. Okay, so I will say here, just like another language, with a spark of magic. Okay. Now I want to show the trick of this magic. In order, why? I give you the code. So next time I will play something to you, you can understand. Okay? All right, so actually, the code of music is this.
Okay.
So it's something that you can play with. Sorry, I just need 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put here. So they can be bricks. Who can see? You can see in some way, right? I forgot. Anyway, so it's not a big deal. Alors, these can be bricks. So can be also the basic of an architecture.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, this brick give me the basic of the music. As we said before, you can say you are an architect or I'm a composer. Okay? So architect. An architect needs a space to build something. And he start to create a proportion with the bricks that he has. This brick can be whatever material, but technically. Right? Let's go to the basic. With music, we go exactly the same. So these are the 2 notes, basic notes, and 2 notes that will have to be proportional to the notes before and after. So with kids, especially at the beginning, if you give a name, actually a sound, to every of these bricks, we can barely create any music. So in this moment, we are creating, writing, building a music, okay? So the small one we call T. The bigger one, that lasts, the duration is exactly the double of ta-da. If I show you this, you will write ta, ta. Right?
Yeah.
Makes sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Does, but it can be a song.
Can be a very repetitive song. Can be a very
repetitive song, right?
Yes.
Why? Because if I give one sound and the same sound to every of these T, it will be always a T, 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 ta, T, 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 T. And if I add a pitch to every note, every brick, it will become something. For example, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So twinkle, twinkle, little star. But the rhythmic repetition is the same.
Yeah.
We call pattern. Keep this word in mind. This is what creates the real connection. Okay, let's go. Sorry. Ti ti ta, ti ti ta, ti 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 ta.
It's almost sang it.
Exactly, no. It's hard So jingle bell, ti-ti-ta, ti-ti-ta, ti-ti-ti-ti-ta. But if you go ahead, we will repeat exactly the same. Na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Because this repetition will help you to follow the song.
Yeah.
So you will, if you find the same repetition, the same pattern, it will help you to understand where you are. You are at the beginning of the song, you are at the end of the song, you are in the verse, you are in the chorus. Let's go ahead. This one, don't watch, please. You look at that. Because this, everybody knows this song, but it's made as possible with the same amount, but for whole song. No, whole song. At the beginning, but actually, this you need it. Someone? There? No one wants to answer? Come on.
Tell me.
Okay. Always the same. Doesn't change. Change the pitch. Okay? So these are patterns. These patterns are what makes, to me, the biggest common point with architecture. Because an architect, I don't think that when he creates something, he doesn't need to find certain things that will be repeated in a way that people that will live in that building or in that street or in that city, we will recognize.
Okay.
Why? For example, you have a big cube, a huge cube outside. People will recognize as a cube with no windows. So it's a cube, but actually it's a building. Inside, if you are inside and actually you have a lot of amazing LCD with the highest, I don't know, 5K, 8K, 10K resolution. So you see outside, you can be wherever when you're inside. But when you're outside, everybody will think, okay, it's a cube, or it's a prison. It's something that will close your sight. So you miss, for example, the little pattern of the windows.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me if you're not agree.
No, I see where you.
But pattern can be also like a kind of. I choose this image because it reminds me dead man. I can see the pattern of that, right? And to me, it's a triangle. To me, the pattern can be this shape that you. Even if to me remind me this one that I grew up playing with that, and I think that building is a genius also because, and this is because we were talking about the eternity of
the timeless.
The timeless, sorry, because that shape can connect my generation that play with this, a new generation that maybe is not playing with this anymore.
Star Wars generation.
Or Star Wars generation. The scientists that relate with the geode, the kind of rock. So put together so many cultures, traditions. You understand what I mean?
I know.
This is to me. This is because this can be timeless. Because it's not just a matter of because it's beautiful. Yes, it's beautiful, but I'm sure that there is certain kind of music that now today we are playing and we say it's beautiful, but if we were played 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they would say what?
Yeah.
Right. Mozart, the first time was played, they said, "Oh, it's too much." So Mozart didn't become famous also because it was too advanced, too ahead, right? So, but pattern doesn't mean that actually is something that is related to art or to beauty, because these kind of patterns, I don't see that as beauty. But people is immediately related to that, because it will find a certain kind of familiarity. They can recognize, so they are not lost.
Yeah.
Right? But if you take off from the context and you see these, it will be, well, come on, it's not too bad, right? Then you go there and you say, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
But personally, when I went there, I said, well, it's fascinating. Someone else not. These, it's hard. But personally, I really would like to believe in one of these, much more than one of that.
Yeah.
Even these people that lives here now, maybe they say, no, I want to go there.
Yeah.
Right? So again, perception. Their time, their life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this building here, I like it. It's not just old because it's old. To me, it has something. Let's go to music. If you are able to isolate one bar, one measure, if you don't read it because you don't know how to read it, actually you see the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a music from Bach. After we will play it, in order that you will see that this kind of concept of pattern is absolutely, we cannot live with that, without
Mm-hmm.
that. Because otherwise we will be lost. Because we don't have something we can hang to. We can, our pivot, our thing that we, okay, it's coming back. Then when it's coming back, I can recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Then since I can recognize it, I can feel it, I can understand it. It's closer to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't scare me anymore, doesn't scare me or doesn't surprise or doesn't, I'm not lost. Okay. So, I would like to show you this Beethoven. We have time?
Yes, we have time. I'm
okay.
just checking if there are any questions. Carry on.
No question, come on!
I have already some questions, but anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, carry on.
You have a question? Question? No? Allora. This music, okay. If you have time, I really would like to show you, not just listen to you, but actually show you this piece of music, and then we will come back. Okay? Can we have 2 minutes of music?
Sure.
Yeah. And start again. So, did you see something?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Did you see the patterns?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually never seen music like this.
Ah, okay.
Seen music like this.
Because this is how we compose today.
Mm.
So this is.
When you say how you compose
I will
it,
show you later. But in this way, you can see how music works.
Mm-hmm.
You see the pattern. Let's go to the beginning, and so the music maybe it's better if a little bit lower. So we can see that there is this ta 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 that we can. It's like the same thing of Star Wars. Ta 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 ta. And John Williams did it on purpose If it was starting like da 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 da, it's too complicated. Or right?
Yeah.
No, he chooses these 3 notes, 4 beats. Da 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 da, da 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 da, and he carries on with the whole song. Change the pitch, but if it was just at the beginning, da 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 da, da 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 da, and then it will miss the point because people will not understand this anymore. Will just feeling that it's okay, that's the beginning, right? So if we watch again, I will highlight the pattern, and you will see how this pattern become deeper and deeper, but you will always now see and hear it. On the score, if I was showing you the score, like the Bach before, you will say, oh, I don't understand anything. To me, the score works exactly in the same way. Just because I have the code.
Right. Okay.
So this is a way how we can visualize.
Yeah.
And I will show you how. We visualize the music.
Yeah.
So you can see these the 3 bricks here. Do, 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 and the long bricks. Do, and then we carry on. Okay. Do, 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 do. A little higher. Again, here, you see, now there are different positions. Again, repeat, different key. Again, different points. And then become more. Another pattern, second key. Here. So we are adding 2 patterns. So you recognize now both. And then he goes crazy. Now, he repeated, right from the beginning. But for you, it's not strange or crazy anymore, because you become familiar. And of course, we don't have time, unfortunately, but in the second part, he will start to develop and go bigger and bigger. Now, never lose the point. If I stop to use it, the same pattern, you cannot follow me anymore. Once I take away, and then ta-ta-ta-ta, for you it's familiar, I can add more information, different harmonies, different melodies, different instruments, different kind of orchestration, and I keep to-to-to-to-to-to-to. So I'm giving you, I give you the trail, the right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it also architecture. Anytime I see a building, I can help myself to don't see the pattern, and then there can be patterns that they are bigger, small, and it's not just because you have the square windows. The pattern for me are the windows. The pattern for me are the presence of rooms inside, doors. Without a door, okay, how can you enter in the room? Maybe in the future there will be the Star Trek, they say, the teleportation, so we don't need doors anymore. But we are going to miss something. Because now for us, every time you enter a room, you take for granted that there is a door. And there is a door everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay? So, and of course the door this pattern, ta 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 ta, it's artistically used, but it's just four notes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing genius. There is nothing genius in using a door. It's how you use that door.
Yeah.
To open and to, so this is literally. Then every time, they say that this ta 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 is the knocking of the destiny because of the historical situation. Okay, forget it. For him, was just a way how to create a connection between himself and. Okay, let's go ahead. Do we have time?
Yes.
Great. So, let's switch to how to make music, what we were saying before. Sorry?
Just creating music in a digital age.
Exactly. So, let's take out this one. All right, so you see the same point before, right? All right, this is the Bach, what we watched before. I show you the score, and then I show you. You see the same bars at the beginning, right? So this is how it sounds, and I put those notes that become at the beginning for you. At the beginning was okay. You cannot decode. At least now you realize after the video I showed you before that this is a long break, long note. And this is a short break, short note, right?
Yeah.
So you see the pattern is this kind of repetition of what? Let's put it oh, sorry. Oh, come on. Carry on. So, same pattern. He just in his incredible, unique genius was, just realized that I want to do something that, how can I say, visually doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
But since I'm teaching, it just moves.
Yeah.
The color is just changing, right? Okay. So, if we go, can I have time to go a little bit? I just want to show you back the score before.
Yeah. I
You see?
Yeah.
Now it's here.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just the.
Yes. So it's a. Can you see everybody? Yes. Dum dum pa pi pa 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 dum dum pa pi pa pi pa pa. To me, it was absolutely clear. There's nothing. It's very easy to pace the music. But for you, it was just saying, okay, here you see always the same pattern, visual pattern, right? So once I gave it to you the code, you are able even to appreciate a little bit more this page that before was almost impossible to decode, right? So we can go even a little bit crazier, showing you these. Oh, these, unfortunately. The screen it's a little small, so. Okay, let's try here. This is another, actually is the part right after we just listened to Bach. It's another way how musicians, they were starting to understand that the concept of pattern was so important.
Mm-hmm.
So they create not only a rhythm, but a full range of music. You will see with the color, and then it just repeated.
Mm-hmm.
Right, slide, start a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happened? Then now you have these four. There will be four instruments playing almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Just, how do you say in English, when you just move a little bit, shift
Mm-hmm.
a little bit on the side. Okay, so they take off. You don't recognize the pattern anymore because it's moving, even if it's still there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's listen. And now you don't see a pattern anymore. But for those three notes, dun 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 dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
we're starting again. So again, I gave you a little code, a little tune, and this is something that is very hard to play, but even much harder to understand if you don't know the code.
Mm.
But since I told you, I explained it before, listen, you are going to listen, these four instruments, okay, here I'm playing just for the piano, play a little bit shift. So every time you hear doom, 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 you will recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
You will appreciate it even more
Yes.
because there is another thing, the narration. Something happened. So since you know now who are the characters and how the characters will interact with each other, they will interact, you can understand even better
Mm-hmm.
what they can do.
Wow.
Patterns. I love this concept of pattern because I think our life is a kind of pattern. A repeating, and it's not the concept of a routine. It's much more a concept of I see, I recognize something, so I'm familiar with that, the thing, what I saw, what I heard, what I taste. Having, I'm Italian, I love pizza, pasta. So I want kind of something that happened again, and I want my pizza, I want my pasta in a way that I like to have it. Because, not only because I like that, because it reminds me something. It's the experience that is behind that taste. And personally, I love it well.
Mm-hmm.
I love good food. But I love also the experience that there is around that food.
Mm.
So if I go to a restaurant or we go to a friend of mine, there are two completely different experiences, even if I'm eating the same plate of pasta. So, but it's just because if I go to a restaurant, it's because I feel for a little while that someone is serving me and someone is treating me, calling me. So I'm a little bit spoiled. I'm going to a friend, maybe I'm spoiled as well, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Right? So the kind of experience, the kind of living situation is different, even if I'm eating the same thing.
Yes.
Right? So it will taste to me differently, and not just because it's different what I'm eating, right? So if I want to expect, it's because let's put it in this way. If I expect something, it's because I want to feel that everything is good, right? So now let's jump to another thing, but let's go directly to this. I want to have a little bit of fun. So, and actually this is something that I really would like to, with Jessica, next time to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I just put a little bit now in order that we can understand better the feeling of not only pattern, but leave again something in a that we are familiar with. Okay, so I have my little things here. So if I go here, let me double check if everything is okay. If I do this, what is this?
Please don't.
请问靠近事情，
Yeah,
不要
please
靠
don't.
近这个门，
Yeah.
抵这个门。Please stand back from the doors.
This is MTR, right?
Yeah.
This is one of my first, and my wife always make fun of me because every time we go to the MTR, I start repeating this thing. But because it was together with sorry, it's here. Together with this other sound, and together with this one, these are for me the most Hong Kong sounds at all, because it's what I didn't understand. I don't have in Italy the traffic light doing this, and it was so loud for me that I still remember the first night I slept here and I was saying tick, tick, tick all the night, tick, 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 and so it's even worse. And then change, and then like this. So it's something that, but then become Hong Kong, and then the MTR station, the MTR. So when I came here, I didn't speak English, so I didn't know in the three languages what they were saying, and so Mandarin, Chinese, and English. So it was crazy for me. But then,
Back from the doors.
I don't know. For me, become familiar.
The sound.
The
comes
sound
out,
familiar.
not because of what it means.
Exactly.
But the sound.
What's actually the sound? And then when there is these other guys, and then starting to shout in the street, but I love it because to me it's something that I don't understand, but it's living. So I just want to show this little joke, musical joke that I made using all sounds from Hong Kong. So I wanted to show that I can create a soundscape of the city that actually it's my soundscape. It's like I give back what the city gave it to me. Utilize so all the sound that we hear it's made with this with one of these sound that you just.
Please stand back from the doors. Back from the doors. Stand back from the doors. 请靠近窗户，
quite familiar to you as well.
Yes.
Right? And that's it.
It's very good. Thank you. So it was a good point to end. I mean, we talked about the music and architecture, but in a way, it is architecture in the context of the city, and it's great that you end up the session with your take from the musical sense, the city,
Yes.
which is great. And if I can summarize what you told us today, I think the first part was really about both architecture and music as an art form. I think it's sort of you drew some parallels between it through different ages. Although it was a very, very brief history in 20 minutes, but it, we get the sense of all the way from ancient kind of history to kind of contemporary, that sort of drawing some parallels. And then the second part really is about you mentioned the topic about timelessness, which for me I think it focuses on experiential.
Absolutely.
Both in terms of time and space. The fact that some are more timeless is because, for me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's beginning to introduce a concept. If you strip everything out, strip the style, strip the style of architecture or the music away. If you start recognizing a pattern, if you start recognizing some fundamental qualities of the music of architecture,
exactly
then you become a piece of things that as a piece of creative piece of work, it becomes getting more towards the timelessness of it, because it respects a certain pattern, certain kind of structure, which you very clearly demonstrated in the last bit, which is really about a common language and a code. And the code, in a way, changes because obviously there was the score, which for a long time people used, but music existed before the code, before the scores. So there was another way of representing it. There was another code. But in a way, the way I think about it is that before, if I don't throw away all the paperwork, you can, if you're really good at looking at movements, then the code is the person playing the piano.
Also,
so that is the code, because there's a pattern in how he does what he does with the left hand and what he does with the right hand. And then if you look at it at a bigger scale, then there's the orchestra, the movement of the orchestra.
The conductor.
So
the conductor becomes the best thing that you can.
So that becomes the overarching structure which create this piece of whatever creation it is, whether it's timeless or not, depending on if you strip back all the styling, what is that fundamental quality?
Absolutely, yes.
And I think in a way, this the pattern you show on the screen is interesting in that it is it's a digital age. How you look at music. Yes. I don't know. Maybe eventually there's no scores. You throw away the scores, and that's just how people read music. But and interestingly, music and architecture, there is something else in the middle. I think, which is because I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but good musicians tend to, or rather, good mathematicians are sometimes very good musicians because they can see the mathematical kind of correlation between the two. And to some extent, architecture as well, because of that sort of pattern. I'm not talking about the structural calculations, mathematics, but I can visualize the geometry, visualize the where the forces go and all that sort of thing. So, for me, we can talk about it forever, and we look forward to the session when Jessica could join us to give us another dimension, which is perhaps even more interactive. And I think I have a few questions. I don't think the audience have a lot of questions. So before we close, just one to start with one question, because in the first section of the talk you talk about as an art form. Architecture, by and large, there's a function attached to it.
Yes.
What's the function of music in your take? Because it is once said, the difference between an art and a non-art is that art doesn't have a function.
Yes. To me, when I was talking about space and time, it's because music need an audience. And the function is to engage the audience. The audience, let's think about how many kind of fruition of music there. There's people that I cannot, but there are people that read a book and listen to music. Yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine and she was saying, I live with music. Music is always with me. That function is not a practical maybe, but for her was something that she cannot live without. I cannot do music and something else. I cannot, because to me music is someone talking, and if in my
talks faster,
if there is a music and then you're talking to me, I start to listen to the music and I cannot, right? Because the sound is stronger for me. And for example, I never ever listen to lyrics when there is a song. I have no idea, and literally I don't care, because for me music talk much more than the words, right? But the function, if you can say entertainment, amusement, or something, but there is maybe it's less practical than for sure it's less practical than architecture,
but it's interesting because it actually, I'm trying to lead you into it leads very very well into what I've always believed in that when I say to you function, it was a bit of a trick, because everybody thinks about function as something, as you said, physical, practical, and you don't know. But actually, there is something called function of the soul.
Absolutely, yes.
Your soul has a function. You don't exist because of these physical kind of requirements. Your soul exists to be pleasured, to be feared, to be scared, and therefore, music's function is just happen to be much more for the soul than it is. But architecture as well, because the space can be small, can be large, can be long, can be thin. But when you go into it, your soul feels something, and therefore it makes it. Some spaces challenge your soul. If you go to, I think we talked about it. If you go to the Holocaust Museum, it was designed to make you feel a certain way, so it challenges your soul. So in a way, we're beginning to kind of come to what I always believe. And interestingly, in one of the earlier sessions, somebody coined a term for me, which is still in the top of my head, the algorithm of the soul.
Yes, beautiful.
That's amazing. What is the algorithm of the soul? Actually, I'm beginning to see some of the algorithm of the soul. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's far from it's much more complex than what you're showing. But in a way, you are it is about decoding the soul, isn't it? I mean, even mathematics, 1 + 1, is just our way of decoding the world.
But imagine that the introduction of number 0.
Yes.
We didn't have it before, right? And then that concept changed completely the perception of actually the culture, right? Of how people can think with numbers, right? So I think that just for one concept, for a circle for us, of course. Let's say with a little sign that it changed completely everything. Because how can be 0 a number if it's nothing? And then with that concept, all the world, all the culture, or at least the modern culture, has changed completely. So when you say the function of soul is not just, if you're Catholic, is the soul that brings you to the paradise. No, the soul is what we have inside.
It's the experiential.
It's experience, something that you can build. You can make it better, bigger, or worse. You can experience. But you say, I agree. If I enter this place, first time I entered this place, this place had for me, touched my soul first. Because it's not just because it's beautiful. Yes, it's beautiful, but maybe someone can find it, I don't know, offensive, attacking you, or I don't know what, whatever. For me, it was entering something that is suspended in time and space. I was talking to me in a completely different way.
Finally, one other concept I quite like to bring out is, I think we kind of talked about it before when we were preparing this as well. It is very, very clearly illustrated here as well, is that the idea of building blocks, the idea of the structure that repeats, that not necessarily repeats, but give it meaning. By that, in architecture, I think some of the most successful architecture has a metaphor,
Yes.
has a structure, has something which guides the project from beginning till end, or even bigger. From sometimes some of the most more well sort of organized cities and so on and so forth, or places, they have what I call sort of some fundamental structure,
Yes.
which not only guides the way organized spaces, open space, public space, facilities and so on within the city
Yes.
context, all the way down to each building, the way the structural grid
Yes.
works, then sub-grid works and so on, even down to the details, where I lay out the plugs, where I lay out the furniture, all goes down to that structure. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
Those tend to be those much more engaged, because
Yes.
there's a reason. It's not because I like and therefore I do. It's
Absolutely.
because
Yes.
there is a fundamental underlying structure. In a way, it is very clearly demonstrated in that graphic, because you're beginning to see, wow, there is a pattern. Although, well, the music is very pleasant. We all know that.
Yes.
But is it because of the structure or not? We don't know. But
Not only.
Not
Actually,
only, but-
but without the structure, it would be much less pleasant.
or without the structure, it could be anything.
Yes, it could be lost.
There is no,
Yeah.
So actually, that for me was very interesting in how we approach, or go back to the other way in the process of creativity. Very often, people think about, well, you've got a blank piece of paper, then you could do anything. But in a way, the challenge is finding that overriding, arching structure
Yes.
to guide that whatever it is that you're doing. For me, is what creativity. I mean, creativity isn't necessarily just from a blank piece of paper.
Oh. Because that, even a kid can do it, right?
Yes.
But then, actually, you were coming back to my mind when you said in Hong Kong, the parking slots
Yes.
are really important,
Yes.
right? And actually, this is a incredible constriction, because
Yeah,
the
it
pillars
guides
you
the-
put in
yeah.
those days, so it means that certain kind of weight, otherwise they are too far or
Yeah.
too close, and then you cannot put inside. So, but then, that is the difference between a great creator and just someone who put together bricks.
A building.
A
Yeah.
building, right?
Yes.
Because the great creators say, okay, I have those, not limitation, let's say something, this guide, green, let's do creative. Let's do it in a creative way,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So there's a friend Gary that twists the building,
Yeah.
and you say, it's possible. Where are the pillars?
Yeah.
Right? Actually, they're right in front of you. You
Yes.
just even see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Great. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think yes, you're right. We should have more sessions like this, and let's engage Jessica when
Yes.
she's better, and more interaction, and I hope the people, the audience enjoyed it, and I hope the people behind the screen enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.